Welcome back to the Lucrative MMA Betting Show. And this weekend we're speaking UFC 312 where we got Sean Strickland taking on Dricus du Plessis. For the second time, we also have strawweight queen Weili Zhang taking on apparently the future strawweight queen to a lot of people in the industry, Tatiana Suarez. We're back in sunny Australia to where there has been crazy knockouts, crazy underdog stories, and crazy rivalries in the past, especially in the middleweight division. And we've got another one coming up this weekend, so very excited to talk about it with you boys. Last week we crushed it. I gave out Vinicius Oliveira as the underdog against Said Nurmagomedov. Hopefully some of you cashed on that. I also gave out Nasruddin Imavov as the underdog against Israel Adesanya. Hopefully some of you cashed on that. And hopefully we're going to cash this weekend because I got a bunch of hot takes and some more underdogs to give to you this weekend. So cue that banging intro and let's get into it, boys. So I will not waste your time, boys. Let's speak about the main event. Dricus du Plessis is putting his middleweight title on the line. Yes, it's his middleweight title now because he did take it off Sean Strickland last time out, or at least the fight before his last fight. So he's coming into this fight with a record of 22-2, while Sean Strickland has a record of 29-6. Currently, they have Dricus du Plessis as the favorite in this one, -205, with Sean Strickland having an underdog price tag of +175. First things first, the alarm bells start ringing a little bit because, you know, the first fight was lined at a pick'em, -110. And what that means is that the market and the bookmakers cannot decide who's going to win the fight. They're basically saying it's a 50-50 fight. And let me tell you something, it looked like a 50-50 fight when these guys fought last time out. You know, it was a very nip and tuck fight. It went to a decision, it went to a split decision, and Dricus du Plessis won that one. And a lot of people scored it for Sean Strickland. So look, it was lined to pick 'em, a 50-50 fight. The fight played out as a 50-50 fight, but now the new line is not 50-50. It's -205. So, you know, first things first, alarm bells start ringing and you think to yourself, why isn't this fight line super close like it was before? We just saw the fight and it was close. Why is Dricus now a big favorite? I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you why I believe that the line movement is actually correct this time around. So both fighters are good fighters, right? But something that we have to mention is that they have completely different styles. You know, Sean Strickland is, for all intents and purposes, a pocket boxer. He walks forward into range, throws his 1-2 sharp shots, and he's got that little loop-in hook, overhand type strike that he throws. Outside of that, he's got a very good teep kick, a leg kick, and a check. That's all he does, right? He doesn't really have any more strikes. Like if he's playing UFC 5 and you had a controller, you probably have to remember 4 buttons, and that's about it. On the other hand, Dricus du Plessis has a plethora of tools in his toolbox, right? He can throw the spinning wheel kick, the spinning back kick to the body. He can throw elbows in close. He can throw heavy power jabs like to what he did against Robert Whittaker. He can take you down like he did against Robert Whittaker, smash you with elbows from top position. If he doesn't throw ground and pound, he can submit you like he did against Israel Adesanya. He can knock you out on the feet like he did against Trevin Giles. He can knock you out heavy shots to the body like he did against Robert Whittaker. The guy has unlimited strikes, right? And not unlimited strikes, but unlimited moves in MMA because he takes you down. He shoots takedowns. He takes your back. You know, he's got single legs, double legs. Like, he's a very well-rounded fighter. You know, it's funny because when he first came into the UFC, everybody was talking about him being someone who was very fadeable, right? Someone who you would bet against. He's never lost in the UFC. He's just won all the way to the belt, and even defended his belt. There was once upon a time where we bet on Dricus du Plessis as a +300 underdog against Robert Whittaker, and also bet on the fight doesn't go to decision on the under 2.5 rounds there. It's honestly crazy, you know, how the market has moved and changed, and the sentiment around him has changed over the years have gone by. You know, I feel like before the Robert Whittaker fight, he was clowned on. After the Robert Whittaker fight, everyone respects him now. You know, everyone likes him, everyone understands his style. And yes, he does look awkward, but it's effective. It's effective awkwardness, and it's very hard to prepare for. It's like Michael Venom Page. You ain't getting a lot of strikers in MMA, sparring partners that are gonna replicate Michael Venom Page. And I can say the exact same thing against Dricus du Plessis. I think the reason the odds are so wide, 2 things. The first thing is that the plethora of tools that Dricus has in his skill set far outweigh the tool that Sean has in his skill set. So if the fight's not going Dricus's way in the boxing, he can start kicking. If the fight's not going his way in the kickboxing, he can start grappling, right? This is definitely a big advantage for him in this fight. Because if the fight's not going the way Sean wants it, he can't change his style. Like, look, maybe he can. He's never shown it in MMA before. So I don't think he can, or at least I don't think he will be successful with it. So that separates them already, right? That's a big thing. And that's actually how Dricus won in the first fight. And then the second thing I believe makes Dricus the rightful favorite in this fight is that the intangibles are on his side. So if you've listened to me for long enough, boys, you know that the way I break down fights are very simple, right? It's stylistically, statistically, and intangibles. All you need to do is to predict the fight and to predict who to bet on is go through these three aspects of the fight, and that's it. You don't need to do any more, boys. And let me say something now. The intangibles heavily favor Dricus du Plessis in this one. And what do I mean by intangibles? Well, I believe that the durability upside, right? And it's not just durability, but durability upside is on the Dricus du Plessis side. And what I mean by that, it's an equation, right? You're going to add the durability onto, you're going to times the durability by the punch power, and whatever that equals is your durability upside. That's how I call it, right? So I believe that if you times Dricus's durability with his punch power, it outweighs Sean's durability times punch power. You know, I think that he's a couple of points above it. You know, you might give Sean like a 7 out of 10 because he hasn't got good punch power, but he's got very durability. Whereas I think you give Dricus a 9 out of 10. Because he's got good durability, not the best, not as good as Sean probably, you know, but he's got very good durability, but he's got heavy punch power. So he's like a 9 out of 10 in the division. So that's an intangible on the Dricus side. Not only is that an intangible, also, you know, being the champion, you know, coming into the fight, understanding that he is now the champion of the world. I know Teddy Atlas coined the term, once you become champion, you become 10 or 20% better, right? And I might have butchered it, but it's something like that. It's this idea, this theory of when you become champ, now you improve, now you're better. Remember, Sean was the champion going into the fight with Dricus the first time. He's not the champion anymore. Dricus is the champion. So that's a big swing, right? Sean's not the champion, but Dricus is now. It's not like Sean isn't the champion anymore, but also Dricus isn't the champion. They've literally gone opposite ways, right? Sean was a champion here, and Dricus was a challenger. Then Dricus became champion because he beat Sean, but then Sean moves down, right? So they've literally swapped places. They're not level anymore. In terms of the mentality, in terms of the championship mindset, Dricus has it, or at least he has the advantage over Sean in that area. That's an intangible that's hard to cap in. Another thing that, you know, I guess you could class this as narrative, but something that I heard Dricus talk about on an interview not too long ago, actually an interview out there in Bondi Beach, which is somewhere that I used to live or very close to it. It was cool to see Dricus do an interview there. He said in the interview that, you know, going into the fight against Sean Strickland, he was a little bit worried about his cardio because he knew that Sean Strickland was one of the cardio divisions and, to be honest, had one of the best cardios in MMA middleweight history. So he was a little bit wary in the first couple of rounds, but then he started to push when he knew the fight was going to end soon, and he started to push heavily after the second round, like third, fourth, and fifth round. And I think you saw that in the fight, right? I think you really, really saw that in the fight because, you know, Dricus was pushing heavily in the fourth and fifth round. And I feel like if he does that from round one, I think he can make the fight completely clear cut, more than it was last time. The last intangible I want to mention is the finishing upside, right? I think Dricus is more likely to win by submission, and I think Dricus is more likely to win via KO. So I kind of like Dricus in this fight based on all of the things that I mentioned. I think Dricus is going to right the wrong in the first fight, you know, going to a split decision. I think he's going to put to bed this rivalry. I think he could even knock out Sean Strickland in this one. But my prediction is going to be Dricus du Plessis retains his title and he's going to win the fight via decision or by KO. Next fight of the night is Weili Zhang versus Tatiana Suarez. So we got Weili Zhang defending her strawweight title, coming in with a record of 25-3, and Tatiana Suarez coming in with a beautiful undefeated record of 10-0. Currently, Tatiana Suarez has swung to the favorite, so she's a -115 favorite at the moment, with the underdog price tag coming back on Weili Zhang at -105. So first things first, it was quite surprising to see Weili Zhang shoot into the underdog range a couple of days ago. She hit +110, I believe, or +105, and now she's shot back down to -105, but she is still the underdog, you know, -105 is still the underdog against a -115 number, although she's not plus money. So it was kind of surprising to see that because, you know, Weili Zhang's obviously a big star. She's been fighting a lot more regularly. She's more well-known, more followers, etc., etc. But, you know, when you think about it, Tatiana Suarez, this girl's -500 every fight, -400 every fight, -300. So it wasn't a massive surprise to see her as the favorite. I think this fight comes down to one thing. Is Suarez in her prime or is she not? If she's in her prime, then I think she wins the fight. If she's not, I think she loses the fight. Because I do think she needs to be in her prime to beat Weili Zhang at this point in her career, because I do think Weili Zhang is in her prime. Now, Zhang's actually older than Suarez, which is kind of crazy. It was a revelation for me, right? First of all, she looks younger. Second of all, I just thought she was based on Suarez being out for so long. And, you know, you just get the idea that Suarez is this old girl and Weili Zhang's still like in her prime. But actually, she's older. But I do think that she's in her prime. People peak differently at different ages. So just because she's older doesn't mean that she's less in her prime than Suarez. I would actually argue that she's more in her prime than Suarez. And obviously that comes down to a lot of injuries that Tatiana Suarez has had. Let's not forget, boys, Tatiana Suarez took a 4-year break from the octagon, right? And that was due to injuries. That was due to outside of the octagon factors, and I do think that affects your prime. Now, I really think this fight comes down to where Tatiana Suarez is in her career, because, you know, coming back off that 4-year layoff, I did see some kinks in her game. I did see some things that I didn't love in her game. Now, don't get me wrong. I bet on her in those fights. I bet on her to win via submission, specifically against Montana De La Rosa. I also bet on her to get a couple of takedowns in that fight. Like, you know, I bet on her heavily in that fight. So I wasn't surprised she won, and I did like her performance. But I did think her athleticism had dropped down a couple of points. And I also believe that her physicality had dropped down a couple of points. Her speed had dropped down a couple of points. Things like this. And I don't think that's good going into a fight against Weili Zhang. I think Weili Zhang is a freak athlete. She's very fast. I don't think her reactions have dropped down. I don't think her athleticism has dropped down. If anything, they're getting better over there in Thailand, training time and time again. I don't think she's going to be better at 37 than she is at 35. This is more than likely her swan song type era. You know, she's probably got a year left of her prime. She might even be out of it now. Maybe her last fight was her prime type thing, because I really don't think she's going to be 36, 37 in her prime. But 35, to me, she's in her prime right now. And I can't say the same about Suarez. So this fight's going to come down to wrestling, boys, because Suarez is a complete wrestler. And while Weili Zhang is a MMA fighter, a well-rounded fighter, and she's shown that recently, I do believe that, you know, this fight is basically a striker versus wrestler, because Weili Zhang is not going to want to be on the ground with Suarez. Suarez is going to extend wrestling exchanges as much as possible, and she's the way better wrestler. So that begs the question, can Suarez get her down? Now, I do think she can get her down once or twice. Like, it'd be silly for me to say she's just not going to take her down in the 5 rounds. But I'm not so sure she's just going to go out there and instantly submit her. Right? I'm not sure that's going to happen. And if she doesn't do that, they're going to be put on their feet in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. And let me tell you something now, Weili Zhang is a much better striker than Suarez. Just as Zhang doesn't have much in the wrestling for Suarez, Suarez doesn't have much in the striking for Zhang. So I think that if the fight is on its feet for an extended period, I think Weili Zhang's going to be hurting her to the body, hurting her to the head. And I think she can be wearing her out, draining her gas tank, and showing that athleticism gap. 5 years ago, I'd be smashing Tatiana Suarez at this line. I'd be completely smashing her. You know, I think that she would be close to a max bet, because we've seen now Weili Zhang not look good on the ground multiple times. You know, she got taken down by Rose a couple of times. She got taken down by Carla. Like, she has shown deficiencies in the ground, and when she gets flat backed, she does not look good. She doesn't have great get up. She looks kind of lost on the ground, and it's not a good thing to be when you are facing someone like Tatiana Suarez. But there's a lot of context in that, right? At the end of the day, I do think she's improving. She didn't get finished on the ground by any of those fighters. So, you know, the fight still started on the feet in the next rounds. For example, with Carla, she ended up finishing Carla. Yeah, she showed deficiencies on the ground, but she finished that fight inside the distance, which is something not many girls have done. You know, Suarez is like one of the only other ones who have done it. So, you know, I think that there's some context within the grappling. I think she's improving. I think she's getting better. I think she's strong. And like I said, boys, it really comes down to if Suarez is in her prime or not. I don't think she is, man. She didn't look in her prime against Andrade, even though she won ITD. She didn't look in her prime against Montana De La Rosa, even though she won ITD. She had 4 years off. You know, it's kind of obvious that she isn't in her prime now to me. And if she isn't, I think the physicality or athleticism gap will show. I think the striking gap will show. I trust Weili Zhang later in the fight. You know, she's proven to me time and time again to have very good cardio, especially later in the fights. We can't say the exact same about Suarez, so I do trust her. She's also been fighting the better level of competition more consistently, especially in recent years. And so, you know, she has a bit more trajectory going into this fight. She is the champion. She believes in herself. It's a close fight, boys. Anyone could win. I think plus money on either side is probably good. And I'm going to pick Weili Zhang to win the fight. I'm going to pick her to win the fight inside the distance. I'm going to say via KO. And I'm going to say it comes a little bit later in the fight, maybe the third, fourth, or fifth round, when the athleticism starts to slow down for Suarez, when Suarez starts to get beat up and a little bit tired and discouraged. So that's my prediction. But yeah, it's definitely a close fight, but I'll pick Weili Zhang to get this one done. Next fight on the card is Tallison Teixeira versus Justin Tafa. So Teixeira has a 7-0 record, a very shiny record, just like Suarez, while Justin Tafa has a bit of a muddy, a bit of a dirty record at 7-4. Currently, the 7-0 undefeated guy is the favorite. Teixeira is -135, with the underdog price tag on Justin Tafa coming back at +115. So this is a bit of a shit show, boys. A crazy fight. We got the 6'7" Teixeira coming in off the Contender Series, facing the heavyweight who hits like an absolute truck. So I think there's going to be a barn burner. It's going to be a car crash. Someone's probably going to die early. It's so funny because, boys, if you look at these guys' record, they don't have a win outside of round one, right? I looked at it earlier. I'm pretty sure that's true. They don't have a win outside of round one between them. And they've got 14 wins between them. Every one of those 14 wins has come not only inside the distance, but round one. So it seems like the under 1.5 is probably be a good play, right? It's probably going to probably the under 1 is probably going to finish in one round. You know, I'll get into the stylistics and tell you why that might not happen, but likely someone's getting finished early in this one, boys. Teixeira is a massive question mark, right? I don't think this guy is very good. I don't think his defense is good. I think he hits very hard. You know, I think he's good at landing some shots, but he gets hit himself. And let me tell you something now. You do not want to be getting hit against Justin Tafa, because that guy can crack. He's probably one of the hardest hitters in the heavyweight division, and I think that's going to be on full display here in this fight, because I think Teixeira is going to walk into range and probably given opportunities to finish the fight. This is a very, very interesting fight, boys. I will say shout out to my man Jewish Better. He told me that Teixeira actually had the word BJJ in his Instagram handle. So maybe he's got some tricky jiu-jitsu moves that, you know, we might see displayed against Justin Tafa. And if so, that'll be a good way to approach the fight. Because let me tell you something now, Justin Tafa is not going to be displaying his jiu-jitsu skills. The guy is a kickboxer through and through, and he's got very bad grappling. So it'd be interesting to see Teixeira shoot a couple of takedowns here, but I can't see it. I mean, he loves to go in there and just bang. I mean, it's got him to the dance, right? It literally got him to the UFC. So why is he just going to change his skill set now? Maybe once he gets hurt or rocked on the feet, he could shoot takedowns. But at that point, it might just simply be too late at the heavyweight division, and he might get cold-cocked and knocked out earlier. Don't understand why Justin Tafa is the underdog in this one, boys. Like, I feel like it's a very close fight, volatile. It seems 50-50. Like, the fight's 50-50 just based on stylistics, right? But then I'm going to tell you why I lean to Justin Tafa a little bit, and it's mainly on the intangible side. So first of all, boys, we got Justin Tafa, who, first of all, is not making his UFC debut, right? So anytime a fighter makes their UFC debut, you have to take 5 to 10% off their winning ability. Just because we've seen time and time again fighters flop on the UFC debut. It's because of many reasons. One of the reasons is because they have jitters, octagon jitters. One of the reasons is because they're taking steps ups in competition that they're not used to. You know, I made a video on my YouTube channel a couple of years ago where I labeled like 8 or 10 fighters who literally went on to fight for the belt or become champion, and all of them lost their UFC debut. So it's definitely a real thing, right? The UFC debut. So that's one reason why I like Justin Tafa. Another reason is because Justin Tafa at least has wins in the UFC against, maybe they're not UFC level fighters, but they're fringe UFC level fighters, right? He has wins in the UFC. Teixeira's got no wins, and he hasn't beat anyone who is worthy of a UFC contract. Can't say the same about Justin Tafa, right? Third of all, Justin Tafa has at least fought into the second and third rounds before. This Teixeira guy went to a third round decision once in a modified kickboxing rules fight. It wasn't even MMA, and the rounds were 3 minutes, right? So I don't know anything about this guy's gas tank. At least I know Justin, yeah, he's a big boy. Yeah, he gasses out, but he pushes through late. Go back and watch the Carl Williams fight. He was tired, but he pushed through well and even hurt Carl Williams a little bit later on into the fight. Go watch the Carlos Felipe fight. He should have won that decision. It was a close fight, right? It could be argued either way, but he probably got robbed. So, you know, I know he can fight late. I know he has a chance of winning the decision, and that's something I can't say about Teixeira. On top of that, he's the underdog, right? So if I'm saying it's 50-50, I'm going to lean to the plus money side. So that's like 4 things. That's quite a lot, quite substantial things pushing me in a direction of Justin Tafa here. Now, you know, I said it a couple of weeks ago when I told you to go and bet Christian Rodriguez against Austin Bashi. And, you know, a lot of people in the comments were disagreeing with that. And one of the big reasons why I did that is because Austin Bashi was coming in off the Dana White's Contender Series. And like I said, man, not only is Teixeira making his debut, but he's also coming in off the Dana White's Contender Series. So that's another thing that we add against him and on the tougher side, because when these fighters are coming in off Dana White's Contender Series, often the market overhypes them. We see time and time again, right? The market just looks at them as golden boys, just as they did again with Austin Bashi, just against Rodriguez, just as they did with Raul Rosas against Rodriguez. You know, they look at these fighters like a little bit better than they are, because we already know them. We've seen them. If Teixeira was coming in off the regional scene, I'd argue he'd be minus 110 here, but because he's coming in off the Dana White's Contender Series, he's minus 140. That is literally an edge in and of itself. If I'm right, which I'd argue I am, I believe I am, that Dana White's Contender Series is impacting his line, then I have just shown out to you an edge before the fight's even started, right? Because we can guess about the knockouts and we can guess about who's got better hands. But, you know, obviously you can argue against this, but it's way harder than arguing against like who's got the better hands or something like that, because it's very subjective, especially when they're in the octagon. Like someone might have better boxing, but someone might be more effective at landing it on that guy, right? So we can get into the weeds there, but it's a fact that these Dana White's Contender Series fighters get more overhyped than they should by the market, right? If that's a fact, which we know it is, then that directly correlates to an edge that we have. We always must have an edge when we're betting on MMA or betting in general. We cannot win without an edge. If you don't know what an edge is, Google it. What is a sports betting edge? Ask ChatGPT. He can explain better than me. I want to stick to the script, right? But I do want to say, and I always do, boys, you know, I always try and throw my nuggets of information based on things that I've learned to hopefully help you become a better sports bettor. And let me tell you now, 1, we always must be betting on an edge. 2, this is definitely a factual edge. Doesn't mean free, doesn't mean Teixeira is going to lose this fight. It does mean that we have a definite edge on, not necessarily on if he should be line minus 135, because he may just be way better than Tafa and maybe his true line is minus 300. So we don't have a definite edge on if we got value or not, but we do have a definite edge on what the market would be if he was coming in off the regional scene, right? So that's just something to consider here, and it's something that I add into my cap in, and it's something that is pushing me, again, like all the other things I mentioned, over the edge to pick Justin Tafa in this fight. I'm going to say Justin Tafa gets a first round knockout. I'm going to say that Teixeira probably wins fights in the UFC, but maybe he doesn't win this one. Again, very volatile fight, but I like the plus money in this volatile fight. Justin Tafa via KO is my pick. Next fight on the card is Jimmy Crute versus Rodolfo Bellato, the return of the brute Crute. He's coming into this fight with a record of 12-4-1. I know you remember that crazy draw against Alonzo Menefield. And Rodolfo Bellato is coming in with a record of 12-2. Currently, they have Bellato as the minus 155 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Jimmy Crute coming back at plus 135. So first thing first, boys, we have to address the layoff that Crute has had, right? He's coming back into the UFC after taking an 18-month break from the octagon. And that was off the back of his very, very poor defeat to Alonzo Menefield. He got smashed in that fight, got hurt badly in that fight, couldn't get out of the way of the right hand, couldn't get out of the way of the straight, and then he got submitted, right? He got completely ran through, and it was a bad look for him against Alonzo Menefield. Now, how is he going to come back from that long layoff? We could look at it both ways, right? And this is what I'm talking about guessing earlier. Like, it's kind of hard to predict many things in MMA betting, right? One of the hardest things to predict is how people are going to come back from layoffs. Look at Dominic Cruz 4 years off compared to some of these other fighters who take 4 years off and look terrible, right? And another thing is game plan, right? Like how are fighters going to approach their game plan? Look at Rinya Nakamura a couple of weeks ago. He shot like 2 takedowns in 15 minutes or 3, and most of them was desperate shots after he got beat up on the feet. He should have been shooting from round 1, right? So it's very hard to predict game plans. One thing I will say is that Jimmy Crute never had the best fight IQ, and he was the most volatile person as to how he was to approach a fight and just what kind of damage he would take in the fight at the best of times. I know you guys remember that Misha Serkinov fight. Cue the video of the Misha Serkinov fight for those who haven't seen it. So look at that, boys. Like, that was Crute at the best of times. Crazy volatility, winning the fight, smashing, and then he gets beat in a split second, right? That's kind of how Crute is. He never had the best fight IQ. He was the most volatile anyway. His fights were always 50-50 no matter what. And now he's coming back off a layoff. It could be even worse. I don't know where his mental headspace is. I know he was talking about he's having some mental issues outside the octagon, troubles before, and so he took time off, and now he's coming back. Are they going to be worse now? Are they better? Does he just need money so he's coming back? Like, you know, there's many question marks coming into this fight, and I don't love to bet on fighters when there's question marks, unless they're big underdogs. And Crute's a decent underdog here at plus 135. So, you know, let's speak about Bellato for a minute. Like, Bellato's a good fighter. He's a meat and potatoes fighter. I've bet on him a couple of times, bet against him before. You know, I bet on him on his Contender Series fight. He won for me as an underdog. Bet on the over 1.5 there. That won for me at underdog price tag. I actually faded him against Teixeira. I bet Teixeira to win in round 2. That was one of the most painful non-cashes of my life. For people who say just pick winners, just show them my 18-1 ticket on Teixeira to win in round 2 and tell me if that wasn't a good bet, you know. It was very close to cashing. Unfortunately, we didn't do it. But the guy's there to be hit. You know, we've seen him cracked against Petrino, brutally knocked out. We've seen him cracked against Teixeira, almost knocked out. So the guy gets hit a lot, right? He's meat and potatoes. He's good. He's good everywhere. Good gas tank, you know, fought a good level of competition even before the UFC. He's a good fighter. He'll win fights in the UFC, but he gets hit a lot and he gets hurt a good amount by fighters that maybe he shouldn't get hurt against. So I think Crute has a chance to come in here as the underdog in his hometown or home country at least of Australia and knock out Bellato brutally, right? And that's actually going to be my prediction. I am predicting Crute to go out there and knock him out. I'm predicting him to knock him out because, first of all, knockout is plus 600, absolute crazy price tag. Round 1 knockout, plus 1400, crazy price tag. I don't see how you can make the price on the KO so big for Jimmy Crute. Jimmy Crute, even if he doesn't knock you out on the feet, likely he's going to take you down and try and ground and pound you. Yes, he got some submissions, but they're more power submissions. He likes to ground and pound as well. I think he's got a good chance to knock out Bellato on the feet. I think he's got a good chance to ground and pound Bellato. Like, Jimmy Crute is live for a knockout here, and he's live in general. I honestly would probably call this fight about a pick'em. Bellato has the deeper skill set. He's the more trustworthy fighter, but I just feel like Jimmy Crute, if he does come back reinvigorated, re-energized, then I don't think he's going to look plus 135 at all. And even if he doesn't come back rejuvenated and stuff, he's still got a chance to get a knockout in this fight for sure. It's just so hard to trust him because Jimmy Crute basically retired after that Menafield fight, right? Like, he said that he wasn't in a good mental space. He took a long time up. I thought he had retired, right? He basically did. So, I mean, he's coming back now. It's just so hard to trust him, right? But we're not trusting him as a favorite. We're trusting him as an underdog. And I'm not saying I am, because I might not. But yeah, my prediction will be Crute in this one, boys. I'll say he gets his KO. Not super confident on this one, but that is my prediction. Jimmy Crute via KO. Next fight on the card is Jake Matthews versus Francisco Prado. And we got Jake Matthews fighting in his hometown, just like Jimmy. And he's coming in with a record of 20-7, with Francisco Prado's record being 12-2. They got Jake Matthews as a massive favorite right now, boys. Minus 230 with the underdog price tag on Francisco Prado at plus 195. Now, I don't want to keep picking underdogs, but I do think there's some value on Francisco Prado here. Now, you know, to be honest, I did pick Dricus du Plessis, so I think that's the only favorite I picked on this entire main card. I mean, Weili Zhang is basically a pick'em, so, you know, you can't really say I picked an underdog there. Yeah, I have picked 4 underdogs in a row here, or 3 underdogs in a row. I think Prado has the tools to make this fight gritty. I think Prado has the tools to knock out Jake Matthews or win the fight on damage here. Now, look, I'm going to have to be honest. Jake Matthews is a better fighter skill for skill. He has a way deeper experience, way deeper skill set, and he's just a better fighter. You know, he's older, he's a veteran. Like, he can definitely do what Mullarkey did and kind of school Francisco Prado to the game of MMA. But remember what I told you about fighters coming in on their UFC debut. And remember, Francisco Prado's UFC debut was against Jamie Mullarkey. It also was at 155. He's moving up in weight class for this one. Why is he moving up in weight class? I don't know. He might be better in this weight class than he was in the previous weight class. That's very possible, right? So I actually think he's going to be big in this weight class. I think he's going to look healthy. And, you know, he's 21 at the end of the day. He's a young guy, man. He's going to be growing into his frame. And there's a reason he's moving up here. I don't think it's just because he's losing at 155. I think it's because he's young. He knows he's going to be at 170 in the future. And he wants to take the plunge now. Jake Matthews, on the other hand, he's not a massive 170er, first of all, right? At all. And, you know, he used to fight at lightweight himself, right? So he's not a massive 170 at. And on the other hand, he's very inconsistent. He's got a big wrestling advantage in this fight, but the guy just doesn't wrestle. Time and time again, he has a massive wrestling advantage and he doesn't put it to use. He doesn't wrestle. If he doesn't wrestle in this fight, he ain't looking minus 230. I'm telling you that now. He might crack Francisco. He's good on the feet. He can even potentially win on the feet, but he'll probably lose. He'll probably get cracked, and he definitely won't look minus 230. So it's kind of like Jimmy Crute in that you're kind of trusting him to follow a good fight IQ and game plan. And I can't trust him, man. I really can't, especially not on minus 230 odds. I think the fight will potentially come down to if Jake Matthews follows a good game plan, if Jake Matthews can avoid getting hurt, because I feel like if he gets wobbled, if he gets rocked, he might panic a little bit. It might throw his entire game off. And I think a lot of the fight's going to come down to that. You know, I feel like, you know, doing this video live with you guys now, a lot of the fights this week are volatile because they come down to specific things, in my opinion. Like, you know, the Teixeira and Tafa fight is very volatile, not only because of the way they fight, but also because we don't know about Teixeira's chin. We don't know about his cardio. He's coming in off the Contender Series. Like, there's a lot of volatility based on that, and the whole fight kind of depends on who Teixeira is. Same thing with the Suarez fight. The whole fight depends on her athleticism and her physicality and if she's in her prime, in my opinion. With the Crute and Bellato fight, the whole fight kind of depends on how Jimmy Crute approaches the fight and if he's got any better in his 18 months off. And here I am again saying a lot of this fight between Matthews and Prado comes down to if Jake follows a good game plan and if his fight IQ is on point in this one. And so already there's a lot of volatility. And one thing that you should do, and if I can give you any jewels or nuggets, it is that if there is volatility, then you need to look to the underdog more often than not. Not always, but the more the volatile the fight, the more the underdog price tag is appealing. And I do think there's a lot of volatility in the entire card, especially in the fights that are broken down, and also in this fight. So I'm going to predict Francisco Prado to win this one. I'm going to say he wins it via a very close decision. Maybe Jake has some top time, Jake hurts him, but also he gets very hurt himself. And it's kind of like a Ribovic-Zellhuber war to where it's a split decision, it's close, but one fighter maybe just edges it because of late round moments or big moments. On the other hand, I think Francisco can knock him out, and I think he can just win it cleanly, unanimously, like Semmelsberger did to him based on knockdowns as well. So I think there's a couple of ways the fight can go. Jake most certainly can win the fight, but I'm not going to trust him at minus 230 to follow the game plan needed to make the fight easy. I actually personally predicting him to not follow that game plan just based on the lack of wrestling I've seen from his tape. I'm not just guessing this game plan, right? Because a lot of people will do that. Like, people will just say, oh, I think he's going to strike in this fight. And it's like, what are you basing it on? Is this a random guess because you like to bet the underdog or something? I'm basing my game plan guess, or lack thereof, on the tape study I did and the research I did on Jake Matthews, and the guy just not shooting takedowns ever. The guy just, he uses wrestling game way less than he should. And it's made him lose fights time and time again. So I think that's going to happen here. Francisco Prado to get the win via KO or decision. So now, boys, we got to the best part of the show. This is the Wheel of Fortune, the lucrative Wheel of Fortune, where I give you a chance to win 1 month of VIP to my MMA betting website, where we have won over 450 units in the last 5 years and have a bankroll ROI of about 2,000% since we started giving tips out. So all you need to do to join in with a chance to win is comment on this video and you will be put into next week's draw. So everybody who commented on my video last week will be put into this week's draw, and some lucky person is going to win 1 month free. So if you win, you'll get access to my elite zone, and what that is, you get all of my official bets for the major organizations like PFL, Bellator, and of course the UFC. Like, every bet I place, you get access to it as soon as I place it. You also get the regional scene bets, which is bets for LFA, Cage Warriors, One Championship, KSW, you know, these type of organizations. On top of that, you get a bunch more stuff. You get my long shot props, my long shot parlays, and we actually cashed a massive long shot parlay last week. We cashed Nasruddin Imavov and Vinicius Oliveira parlay at plus 455. You also get the best parlay pieces of the entire weekend. So all of the best parlay pieces I believe there are out there. Last week I gave out Terence McKinney versus Damir Hadzovic under as a parlay piece at like -210, you know, that hit with ease. And a bunch more stuff, boys. Full card breakdowns, every fight on the card I break down in depth. So yeah, a bunch of stuff you get to my elite zone. So it's definitely worth entering the draw. And don't worry, if you don't win the draw, you can go to my website, lucrativemmabetting.com, and sign up for an Elite Zone package yourself. Very easy. If you don't want to sign up to the Elite Zone and you just want my bets only, we have a much cheaper package that you can get basically all of my bets on. So yeah, check out lucrativemmabetting.com for that. You can sign up for this weekend. We got a bunch of bets this weekend that I haven't spoken about in this video, so definitely a good week to join. And if you don't want to sign up for a month, you can just sign up for a week, a trial week. So yeah, you can go to the website for that, but someone's gonna win a whole month for free right now. So without further ado, let's get to the Wheel of Fortune. All right, boys, here we go. I'm spinning the wheel now. Let's go, it's spinning. Who's gonna win this one? Slowing down, slowing down. There's a lot of names I can't even see. Let me see. SL6, no. Sammy Buckingham, no. Simple Man. Simple Man 4303, 4308. Congratulations to you. You have just won 1 month completely free on the Lucrative MMA Elite Zone. So buckle in, you're gonna make a lot of money over the next month. Congratulations to you. All you need to do is DM me on any social media, Twitter or Instagram, and I will verify you. So don't message me if you're not Simple Man, because there's ways I can verify your YouTube channel. I'll verify you, then I'll add you to my website, and you can access it for this weekend. You get all of our bets, full card breakdowns, long shot parlays, all that good stuff. So congratulations to you. And again, if you want to be inputted into next week's draw, just comment down below. And by the way, if you already signed up to the Elite Zone on my website, you still get a free month. So make sure you still comment, because I'll just add another free month on for you for free. So that's it, boys. Let's cash these bets this weekend. And there's a lot of underdogs this weekend as well, and a bunch of underdogs on the prelims. So yeah, hopefully we can cash this weekend, boys. Good luck on all your bets. I'll see you in the next video. Let's get it. Bang.